last night I had a reel came up on my feed, and it had these words: "Your death will come on an ordinary day, in the middle of unfinished business, places, and I can't read my plans, unfinished plans, and the world will continue without you. So live a little." What a pathetic response. What a pathetic response to a reality that life is so short. There must be a better answer to that than live a little. There has to be more. And life beyond the grave is the only thing that makes sense of this life. It's the only thing that makes sense of the journey. And I don't like cliches, and journeys like on those, I've got to drag it out, but I use it deliberately because we are on a journey. And I don't know if any of you have ever been on a journey to the Denanagan. You weren't expecting that, were you, right? Who has actually been to the Denanagan? Wow. Okay, I'm not sure if that's about half, maybe a little bit more. Okay. If you were driving from here to Dargo, can we put this you would go past this sign and it says Denanagan. If you saw that sign, would that be enough to take you in there and investigate? Would you want to go and explore when you just saw that sign? Okay. Well, this week gone, whatever it was, I don't know if it's this week or last week, but in the last little bit of time, Mark and I went on a trip, and I'm going to show you the adventure that we had. So we'll show this little video. Okay, I've brought Mark on this little adventure. He really has no clue what we're doing, and I've got him standing here in front of a sign that says Denanagan and the Bluff Lookout and Mitchell River off to the right. Now, we're going to go left. We're going to go down to the Denanagan. But just out of interest, Mark, you've never been here. You have no clue what we're doing. What would you think that a den was?
I know what a den is.
Right.
It's basically a hole in the ground that an animal would live in, like a fox.
Okay, well done. So what do you think that the word Nagan is? What do you think a Nagan is?
The fact I've never heard of a Nagan, but thinking den is somewhere where something lives. A Nagan would possibly be a mythical creature.
Well done. That's very good. Give you 10 points out of 10 for that one, Mark. Now, according to the Gurnai people, this mythical creature was half stone, half human, was a female creature that would devour children if they went off in the bush and got too far from camp. If they got lost, this creature would devour them. And so that was a fear that these kids grew up in this area, but it actually helped to keep them safe. Now, we're going to the Denanagan. If we went right, Bluff Lookout, what do you think that would be?
That would be a lookout overlooking the countryside.
Yep, great, yep. And Mitchell River, what do you think that is?
A river.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but the Denanagan, that must be a little bit intriguing to you. Are you curious to find out what's actually there?
Absolutely.
What do you imagine is actually there?
A humongous cave.
Okay, and what's going to be in this cave? Any little Nagans floating around still?
I'm hoping there's going to be a family of Nagans.
A family of Nagans. Okay, well, we're going to go down this little track here. We're going to go for a walk down this track. When we get there, I'll be very interested to see that if what we experience is what you're imagining standing here looking just at that sign, Den of Nargan. So thank you, Mark, and we shall continue our little adventure. Mark, we've arrived at the Den of Nargan. Now, just over your shoulder over there is a hole. Would you describe that as a den?
I would say, yes, it is a den, but it's more like a wombat hole.
So you don't think it's the Den of Nargan?
Definitely not, no.
Not the Den of Nargan?
No,
okay.
no. If it was the Den of Nargan, the little Nargans would be little.
Okay, so is this anything like you're imagining the Den of Nargan would look like? Were you expecting water to be here?
Didn't expect water. Totally not what I expected.
Rainforest. Were you expecting rainforest?
No, didn't. The walk down was spectacular. The rainforest look, the trees, the country, the cliffs.
So when you first saw that sign, Den of Nargan, if there'd been water flowing at the moment, there'd be a waterfall roaring over the top of that. When you saw the sign, is this anything like the sign?
Totally not. If I saw the sign, I probably would have just drove straight past it and not thought twice.
Yep.
Unless I'd looked into it.
Okay, so you only come down here because I dragged you here, not because the sign was enough to inspire you to come.
Absolutely.
Are you glad you came?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, yes. It's a great spot. Den of Nargan, recommend it. You see, every culture has a way of trying to modify human behaviour. When I was a kid, I had a really bad temper. And I would pull these faces and scowl. And I remember an adult saying to me once, "Don't do that. The wind will change." You can see the results, can't you? Right? But presents at Christmas time from Santa, if you're good. Heaven and hell. We weaponise all sorts of things in our world to help try to control behaviour. But here's the thing. Heaven and hell are real. Our Bible speaks about both. And if you do a search through the Old Testament, let's throw the New Testament in as well. If you do a search looking for where you can find the words heaven and hell in the one sentence, in the one verse, connected together in the one set of thoughts, do you know how many times they appear together in our Bible? None. Never once. From Genesis all the way through to Revelation, they are never, ever connected. They certainly don't pop up as opposites to each other, competing for our eternal destiny. Now, don't misunderstand me. Heaven is real, hell is real, and the Bible clearly teaches about both. In this life, the choices we make here and now, that determines the reality of where the rest of our life will go, what we enter next. In 1940, a guy called C.S. Lewis, he wrote a book and it was called The Problem of Pain. And in this he makes this statement: the doors of hell are locked on the inside. If that feels like a strange thought, this new series on life after death, I think that it's going to be helpful for you. I believe that as we focus a little bit on what comes next, it's going to help all of us. C.S. Lewis was probably one of the most respected and renowned theologians of the last century. And in another book called The Great Divorce, he writes this. He builds upon that thought that he put in the other book. He says, there are only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to God, thy will be done, and those to whom God says in the end, your will be done. Heaven is real. Hell is real. They certainly bear a relationship to one another through the choices that we make. But they do not just appear together in the same places in the Bible. In our culture, in our language, in our words, we connect heaven and hell together in the same sentence. That's not the Bible narrative. So something else must be going on. Something else is taking centre stage. If instead of doing the search of heaven and hell, if we put a search into our Bibles on the words heaven and earth, we will find approximately 200 times those two are connected together. So like you got the opening pages of Genesis, it's like in the beginning, heaven and earth. And then there's this pulling apart of heaven and earth and this rebellion and declaration, want to do things, God, without you. And then we find Jesus speaking about bringing heaven to earth. And in the final chapters of our Bible, you see that taking place where heaven and earth come together in this grand and brand new creation. And hell, all the way through the Bible, is a subplot. Now, the signposts to the Den of Nargan were not a full description of what Mark found there. Woven throughout God's word are signposts to the coming together of heaven and hell. And God hasn't given us a full video of what that's going to be like. There's no little highlight reel. There's no picture. What life beyond the grave looks like. We have signposts. Now, for those that have been to the Den of Nargan, have you ever been there when the water's flowing over it, when it's been rainy? Yeah. Spectacular. But the beauty of it can't be captured just on a sign. You actually got to wait till you get there. Whoever put the signs up into the Den of Nargan, they didn't expect the sign to reveal what is there. They thought that was enough to point us in the right direction to get us there and not get lost. As I've been praying for this morning, and as I've been trying to work out, why do we sometimes in our culture get this a little bit wrong? Why do we make heaven and hell like opposites? And I was thinking about it, I think it's because we make heaven a destination. Because when Jesus taught us how to pray, he made it clear that heaven is this realm where God's perfect will is done, where everything that God wants to happen in this ideal environment, that's heaven. That's where God dwells. And when he taught us how to pray in Matthew, he said to pray that culture, that way of life would come to earth. That's God's big grand plan, to bring heaven to earth. And he says, pray that his will would be done. That word done, the Greek word, it just simply means to come into being. Have you ever stopped to think how much the New Testament was written to address wrong thinking and wrong behaviour in the early church? Well, smarter people than me have added it up. 35% is our Bible has been written to deal with wrong thinking, wrong behaviour in the church. And one of the earliest challenges the first century church faced was this thing called Gnosticism. It was a heresy that said salvation was about Jesus getting us out of earth into heaven. That's what Gnosticism believed. They were very focused on the spirit part of us, and the body they saw as evil. The physical world is not important. The spiritual world was all that was important. It's a worldview that hasn't gone away. Gender fluidity is Gnosticism. It's focusing on the inner, forgetting about the externals of how you were born and all that identity. The identity crisis in our world, in the generation growing up, that's Gnosticism. It's trying to find the inner stuff and not allowing anything else to be important. It's confusing. And Paul, in writing to an intern called Timothy, said to him this, guard, this is in 1 Timothy 6:20, he says, guard what has been entrusted to you, turn away from godless chatter and the opposing ideas of what is falsely called knowledge or Gnosticism. Heaven as a destination for our soul, for our spirit, and leaving this evil world behind us, that's Gnosticism. In his book, The Skeletons in God's Closet, Joshua Butler writes this. He says this, against this, the New Testament church proclaimed loudly, boldly and clearly that God's purpose in Jesus is not to get us out of earth and into heaven, but to reconcile heaven and earth from the destructive power of sin, to redeem creation to himself. Paul's email to a church that is in what is now modern Turkey is an exception. It is totally, the book of Ephesians is trying to get through the big plan of what God has, what his grand plan is, and the exciting goals that he has for us, the church. It's an amazing book. And in the opening chapter, Paul builds up to this one big, what he calls a revelation. It's in verse 9. He says, he describes it as a mystery of God's will that is made known to us. The word mystery comes from a Greek word, mystion. And Jesus used it quite a lot as well. And he talks about the mystions of the kingdom of God being given to us, that we could know these things, the mysteries of God. And it's a big deal. And as Paul builds this up in First Ephesians, he eventually gets to a place where he lets us see what it is. And this is it. He says, to bring all things in heaven and on earth together. That's God's plan. To bring all things together in heaven and on earth. It's never been about getting to this realm called heaven. It's always been about bringing heaven and earth together. And we see that in the climax in Revelation 21. Then, this is what it says, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there is no longer any sea. I don't know if you like surfing. That's an issue for some of you, I know. God has something better. I don't know what it was going to be, making room for all of us. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for a husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people. He will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He'll wipe away every tear from their eyes. There'll be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." Coral and I live in a house that nearly 50 years ago my dad built. He had no money when he built this house. And so the kitchen in it was derelict cupboards that came out of a house that they were throwing out as scrap, and Dad souvenired it and somehow configured a kitchen out of it. So for all the years that we've been living in this house, Coral's had a dream. A new kitchen, right? And when John is writing in Revelation about a new heaven and a new earth, the word that he uses, this Greek word, is an amazing word. It doesn't quite mean what we think. This is what it means. New in quality. So this earth that God is going to recreate is going to be new in quality. Hang on. Does anyone want to drink water? No. It's superior to what went before. That's what the word new means. It's radically different. It's fresh, unprecedented, thank you, Anne, unseen and unworn. But here's the bit that got me in what the word new, in this new heaven, new earth it's going to be, is that it is perfectly consistent with God's earlier revelations. Because see, this earth is a revelation that God is there. It reveals God. But when he remakes it, when he redoes it and it's going to be new, it will reveal exactly what the old earth did, but in a fuller way. And when Coral's kitchen comes, we've already been to IKEA to have a look. It will be configured in the same room, with the same ceiling, the same taps will be in the same place. It will be a similar shape to the previous, but it's going to be her new kitchen, right? Yeah, I reckon it is. In 2 Peter, he's talking about this coming thing. And he says, but in keeping with his promise, which means it's not an afterthought, we are looking forward to a new heaven and a new earth, a world filled with God's righteousness. Now, that was written 2,000 years ago. I reckon we must be a bit closer. Maybe a lot closer. Don't miss this. That new creation has already begun. Not in full, but you are living proof that you're the entree to this new creation. Heaven's culture, heaven's ways are already here on earth. Every week, people here in Redgum and churches across the world choose to put God's agenda, his kingdom, ahead of their own ideas and needs. In their time, in their energy, finances. See, extravagant generosity is God's heart, isn't it? That's his response to us, who he made. And in 2 Corinthians 5:17, Paul writes, if anyone is in Christ, They are a new creation. The old is gone. The new is here. See this thing around us. It's a building. It's a tool. But about 3.5 years ago, when we tried to buy this thing, the banks were not going to be helpful. See, banks understand that people don't always play well together. And when a group in a community wants to borrow over $500,000 or buy something over $500,000, they were not enthusiastic. They ran from us. Even when you people raised $140,000 cash in 10 days to go to the banks with it, here's our deposit. No, they didn't want to know about it, even though we could prove at the time. So it was 4 families loaned Redgum $100,000 each, and then another family had to add over $50,000 to cover the GST for us to get into this building, and then the rest of it we fitted out as people have given us money as well. At the end of last year, we were finally able to get a loan from a bank and repay the 4 families. Listen to this. It was our history together, the consistent giving financially to Redgum, that changed the bank's mind. This is just a building. But what you see is living proof that the culture of heaven has come to earth. And kingdom generosity began this journey of this building. The mortgage repayments are only possible because of the consistent giving of people, which is pretty remarkable. And that's what happened when new creation people come together. I would encourage you to read the book of Ephesians. It's only a short book, 6 chapters. Read it this week and get a glimpse of what God can do through new creation people when we gather together. It's breathtaking. When I was a kid growing up, we had a thing called Sunday school. And we sang songs, which I can't sing, which is why, Aunt, you didn't, I didn't, right? But we sang this little song. This little light of mine, I'm going to let him shine, boom, 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 this little light of mine. I'm having fun, it's okay. But we sang this little song. The words of that are taken from something Jesus said when he said, let your light shine before people. And it's very easy to think through sort of a lens of an individual, especially when Jesus starts off that, and he starts off with, you are the light of the world. And when you hear that, some of you think, well, of course I'm the light of the world. Of course, it's obvious, right? And some of you think, well, I could never really shine. I could never really, if people knew, I can't be the light of the world. And when we hear the song, let your little light shine, we think it's individually, but as soon as Jesus said, let your light shine, in the next breath, he says, a city on a hill can't be hidden. He's not talking to individuals. This is us. This is us together. What we do together, that's what shines. See, just us financially together changed a bank. But Jesus said what would change our world is how we love one another, not how we love God, how we love one another. That is the proof that new creation has come. The kingdom, it's the proof, it's the reality that it's possible for heaven and earth to come together. I'll finish with this. Life beyond the grave starts now. If you can't remember a thing of what I've said this morning, just remember this. The earth around us is a signpost to people that God exists. But how we respond to one another, because this is going to come as a shock to some of you, but not all Christians are nice. Some Christians are hard to live with, hard to forgive. It's hard enough when you marry someone who you really love without having little things you've got to forgive each other for. So we, the church, are the signpost, not to just that God exists, but that heaven and earth could come together and people could be different than any other group in the community. We are the signpost to Jesus. And then when we become Jesus followers, he gives us his word to be a signpost for the rest of the journey. In there's a verse in Psalms that says, your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. All the signposts are there, pointing Denenhagen, life beyond the grave. Who didn't know what a Nagen was? Either did I. I had no clue until I searched it up. Charlie, that's a great story. I reckon the mums that came up with that do you know any more about that than I do? Women's business only. I understand that, yes. Well, it didn't work. It didn't work because the men aren't meant to know all this stuff. Yeah. But just take away from today, what we do is a signpost to our community. It really matters. Collectively, what we do personally between us and God and his word, that gives us a signpost to trust him to the life beyond the grave, because there has to be something more. There has to be something more.